Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be, wherever you may watch this video. Welcome back to Train Tuesday. I'm your host, Jim Wiggin. And we say it every time, but it's true. We've got a lot to talk about today. But before we do that, let's do what we always do. Let's see who's joining us today. I've got Zach, Rick, Troy, George, Dave, Ibuprofen Dave. I like that. Ted, Joseph, Anthony, Scott, Cody, D'Angelo, Joel, and Joel's at the workbench. He's installing some sound into some locos. So enjoy the show while you do some work on those locomotives. And Jay Cure says duck. Okay. There might be something behind me. It is the spooky month. Let's see. What have we got going on today? Well, we're going to talk about GP7s and the Genesis line, and we're also going to talk about some Airslide Covered Hoppers. And then I've got some cool pictures to share with you. Our contributor, Chris Rippey, has sent some pictures in. I want to show those to you. And then some more sneak peeks from development. I'm going to sneak in some pictures that the guys in development have sent my way. I want to pass them on to you. A lot of good stuff coming in real soon. So let's see who else we've got out there joining us. We've got Dave, John, Eric, Alexander, Anthony, Eric, John, all the way from Prescott, Arizona. And let's see, we've got Dave from St. Helens, Oregon. And D'Angelo's looking like he's pretty excited. Ron is saying hello. And who else do we have? Ian from, looks like QC. I'm going to say Quebec. Let me know if I'm right or not, Ian. And Joel, of course, he's here with the nachos, and this time apparently brownies. So let's do this. Let's assume the position. Let's put down the hobby knife, except for those who are putting sound in their locos. Let's grab our favorite beverage, sit back, relax, and see what's going on in Genesis this month. Now, remember, you have until the end of the month to pre-order anything that we talk about here on the show today as far as new items. So without any more ado, let's get to it. So like I said, we're going to talk about the GP7s today. And the GP7s, this was EMD's, really, this was the diesel that changed everything. They had some diesels before this. And ironically enough, this railroad that we're talking about first, the Bangor and Aroostook, was one of the few railroads that kind of invested heavily in the BL2s. But by the early 50s, with the Bangor and Aroostook being a heavy EMD owner, they went ahead and picked up these GP7s. Now, as they were delivered, they had a really cool blue and gray paint scheme. And we've talked about this on the show before. As the 1960s evolved and trucking kind of started to put a hurt on the railroad industry, which was really felt in the Northeast early on in the 1960s, simplifying things was the way to go. That was the name of the game. And Bangor and Aroostook was no different than, say, some of the other regional railroads at the time. So they went with this really nice blue scheme with yellow gold markings. And as plain as it is, it was still a rather attractive paint scheme. Now, maybe not as attractive as the previous paint scheme. But if you're modeling, northern New England in the 1960s into the 70s, this is what you're going to want to invest in. Now, these, again, we're doing them in 3 different road numbers. And these are pretty much as they appeared in the 60s into the 70s. So here we have number 63. And, of course, number 68. Now, since these were ordered from the factory, there's not a lot of differences in them. They are specific details to the Bangor and Aroostook. However, we did want to do one special GP7 in the mix, and that is the Bicentennial. It was about June of 1975. They went ahead and painted up this GP7, renumbered it 1776 for obvious reasons, and named it after a local patriot in the Maine area. He had a really good naval background to him. And they ran this for a period of years. And then eventually, just like a lot of those Jeeps, they went into a different paint scheme. And from there, they got sold and in some cases scrapped. But if you're doing 1970s, anywhere between 1975 on to the early 80s, any three of these locomotives would be good for you Bangor and Aroostook fans. So that is one of the regional ones for me, one that I have some interest in. Let's see what else we've got. So we get a lot of requests for Frisco, and why not? Frisco's got a great paint scheme. This Mandarin orange and white, nice visible colors, just works well. And these locomotives here, these are 1960s era. These locomotives here, we've got three distinct different locomotives. Now this is a freight version. You can see that it's got pretty much the standard Frisco paint scheme, but if I go to the next one, 544, still a freight locomotive, but they've got the barricade stripes on the nose. So a little bit different. And again, we've talked about it before. The developers, they're pouring through historical society records, books, the internet, whatever they can get their hands on. That way you've got a little bit more variety. I mean, the easy thing to do would just be to take a GP7 and paint them all the same paint scheme and slap some different numbers on them, but that's not how Genesis works. Genesis is specific to the road number. Now, what's really cool is there's also a dual service unit. It's a freight and passenger. You can see the steam generator on the short end of the nose, and that one's also got the barricade stripes. So every single one of these locomotives in the Frisco line is completely different. They've got subtle details to them to make them just different enough for you to enjoy. And I'm just going through between switching screens and showing you these really cool pictures. I'm just going through what you guys are talking about, what you guys are asking about, and not seeing any comments right now on the Jeep 7s that we've talked about. A lot of suggestions. I see them. We're not going to talk about it today because right now we're talking about what we've got on the screen. All right, so let's go to the next one. And again, Frisco has been highly requested. So here's one we have never done. In fact, backtracking just a little bit, the Frisco, we've never done the Frisco in the GP7 before. That's the first time we've offered it in Genesis. But here's another one. This one is really interesting. Midland Valley, Kansas, Oklahoma, and Gulf. As far as I know, we have not done that locomotive before. If we have, let me know. I don't remember it. And really small regional railroad. These were delivered to the railroad around 1953, so these were brand new. GP7 was a brand new locomotive when they got these. And let's see, Terry, if you said it, I probably missed it because I'm switching screens. Terry had something to add about the chevron barricade stripes. So if you repost that for the guys to see that are watching the side live thread, go for it. I might catch it, but can't guarantee because I'm switching screens. So really unique paint scheme. It's an EMD design paint scheme. It wasn't the paint scheme that the railroad came up with. A lot of paint schemes in that era were actually developed by EMD. Another case in point was the original Boston and Maine maroon and gold. That was one that was designed by EMD. So this was one of the types of paint schemes that the railroad could order. All right, so we've got that one in, I believe, 2 road numbers. Yep. And coming up next, we're going to go out west a little bit. We're going to go to Great Northern. Now, these Great Northern Jeep 7s, these are not the as-delivered paint scheme. Again, like we were talking about with the Bangor and Aroostook. By the 1960s, they were trying to simplify. This was before the Big Sky Blue paint scheme came out. This is more in the early 60s. And if you remember what the original Great Northern paint scheme looked like, it was a really attractive paint scheme. It looked great on the RF units. It looked great on all of their locomotives, but it was really labor intensive. If you had to repaint that locomotive, it was just a lot of work. And again, we've said it on this show before, if a locomotive is in the shop getting painted, it's not out on the road earning its keep. So rather than have this thing sit in the paint shop longer, they did this simplified paint scheme. And this was common right up until, believe it or not, right into the Burlington Northern era, early Burlington Northern. Some got repainted, but some of them actually stayed in the Burlington Northern era. So if you're modeling, let's say, early 1970s Burlington Northern, you could justify this as an early a recipient, if you will, from the purchase. So we've done that one in 3 different road names, or sorry, road numbers. And if you'll remember, we've offered the GP7 in, and also the GP18 for that matter. We've also offered that in their predecessor schemes, but with Burlington Northern numbers. So a little bit of work. You wouldn't have to worry about switching that over to an early BN locomotive. Here's number 611. Interesting too, if you notice, Great Northern would put the winterization hatch on the fans like a lot of the Western roads would do, but the horns are actually on the winterization hatch, which is kind of cool. So going back out east again, we've got the Pennsylvania Railroad. And this is one of those locomotives that, again, this is pretty much as it was when it was delivered. When Pennsylvania was ordering the early diesels, they were ordering them by assignment, much like the steam locomotives before them. Now, one of the things that a lot of people kind of overlook is, at first glance, this locomotive looks black. I'm going to look into the comments section and tell me who's the first one out there. Kevin's probably going to be the first one with the correct name, but it's not black. What was the color? It was a type of green. If somebody can give me that name out there, I'll give you a shout out. I know Kevin's probably going to come up with it first because he says he loves the Pennsylvania Railroad. Oh no, Tyler beat him to it. It's Brunswick Green. You're absolutely right. Brunswick Green is a very, very, very dark color, and it looks black in most light. But if you have the opportunity to see one of these locomotives that's been restored to the best of their ability, and you have it in the sunlight, you can definitely see the green hue to it. It's actually a really striking color, and as basic as this paint scheme may seem, it's a really nice paint scheme. So we're offering that also in 3 different road numbers. And these are pretty much, this, 85, 84 has steam generator capability to it. Another thing that's interesting about these is Pennsylvania Railroad, they ordered these from EMD to operate long hood forward. A lot of railroads in the early days of diesels would do this. All right, so next we're going to talk about the air slides. Now these air slides, we've talked about it briefly before on the show. But there's a couple of things that are important to remember about these air slides. First of all, the covered hopper was relatively new when these came out. Before that, things such as flour, grain, things of that nature, they all went by boxcar. And depending how they were shipped in a boxcar, that could be rather interesting. In some cases, they would remove the doors of the boxcars. They would add a wooden makeshift hatch, if you will, that would fill up about 3/4 of the way up to the top of the boxcar, and they would just feed the loose grain inside the boxcar like that. Not the most efficient method, but at the time that was, better than the alternative. By the late 50s, early 60s, the covered hopper was coming into play, but this covered hopper had something that was really neat. The air slide would allow some materials, say flour, or anything granular to liquidize. That's a hard word to say. So that it would go through the chute much easier. It would actually use air, and it would vibrate that interior part of the car, and everything would come out nice and easy, rather than just worry about straight on gravity. So this was a much better setup and a lot more efficient than what they had just previously. So we're offering these in the Genesis line, and in the Genesis line, these are going to have all the details that you're accustomed to. These are perfect for your home layout. They're perfect for taking to the club layout. And we're offering them in a couple of different versions. Now, first one we have here is the Santa Fe. This is the original 1950 scheme as it appeared in, say, 55. And we're also offering these in singles and multi-packs of 2. So here's the multi-pack of 2. This is a little bit more modern than the 50s version. We're looking at the late 70s. In fact, this one, the top one, if I zoom in on this, looks like it got a little bit of work done to it in 81, September of 81. You still have your ACI panel on there. You've got your yellow dot still on there from the wheel situation that happened in the late 70s. We have the original GACX. This is a 1950s model, how it appeared in the 1950s. Once again, a 2-pack, and that's also the 50s version. We get a little bit newer. We're getting into the 70s now. Now we've got the Seaboard Coastline, slightly darker gray. Really good looking car. So if you've got something in the 1970s into just barely early 1980s, I wouldn't say anything past 82 or 83, this would probably fit the bill. And of course we got Frisco. So if you're running those Frisco Jeep 7s we talked about earlier, this is the perfect car to go with it. Again, 1970s. This car was built in 1968. But the way we've got it decorated here, we've got it painted, it's definitely a 1970s car. Because again, you got that ACI label, pre-1980s car. And then, of course, we got Southern Pacific. There's always going to be some form of Southern Pacific, it seems like, every month. And why? Because Southern Pacific, there's a lot of you guys out there that model it. So we want to make sure you guys have everything you need to complete your layout. This one here, again, this was built in about 65. This one can be used from the 1960s into the mid-1970s. And, of course, we can't forget the Rock. Rock Island. This is their 1960s paint scheme. Plain and simple, but still attractive. And we'll get to that in a moment. So there you have it. You've got these covered hoppers, the Airslide Covered Hoppers. We're pretty much looking at 1955 to the late 1970s, maybe squeak by into the very early 80s. But for the most part, these cars are perfect for anybody that's got a layout that has some type of, whether it be a concrete, silica, anything of that nature, even a bakery. Bakeries, of course, get flour and things of that nature by rail if they're big enough, that is. So you have all types of opportunities. And the cool thing is the 1970s was kind of a transition point. Yeah, they were losing to the trucks somewhat, but we were still having smaller branch line operation happening on a lot of the Class 1s. And mid-sized customers that are perfect for your smaller layouts were still being serviced by rail with a little bit of help by truck. So a couple of things to think about. All right. Let's see what we've got. Joel says, we shipped talc in them. Yeah, that would make sense. That would be definitely a one of the items that these could carry. Somebody's excited about Southern Pacific. Tom, he's happy about the Rock Island, and hey, yeah, you should be. Rock Island was a great railroad. Yeah, Vic Lewis, this is a good comment to come up with. They didn't last long into the 80s. SCL scrapped them around 82, 84. So there you go. Vic, thanks for that. You're obviously either modeling the SCL or you're got some information there. And he's right. I mean, if you look at the markings on ours, it definitely wouldn't have been past 81, 82, I would think. So good point. Thanks for sharing that with us. All right. All right, I'm just kind of going through the comments before we go on because, all right. Well, cool. So like I said, these Genesis items, you have until the end of the month, 29th, which is a Friday. And you've got enough time to go to the hobby shop, pre-order these, and get home in time to get, candy for the little monsters that show up later on that weekend. So what's going on around at Athearn? Well, Athearn's always busy. We've always got stuff going on, and got some neat stuff going on this month that I know you guys are going to love. Let's go on to Athearn News. Now, Athearn News, it changes every week. We will sometimes maybe visit a show. Maybe we'll show you what the development guys are working on, or maybe sometimes we even show pictures of what you guys are working on. So here we go. Let's get started with what we have to show. Now, like I said, Chris Rippey, you've probably seen his pictures before. They're usually on the Athearn website, sometimes in social media. He was with one of our developers. If you remember Jack, who was here a few weeks ago, Jack has got the new SD40-2s, and he wanted to get some pictures of them. So let's go ahead and share those pictures because these are absolutely beautiful. Now, these are the ready-to-roll SD40-2s. We announced these last year. I believe it was either September or October. And they delayed a little bit because, like I said, there's a lot going on right now in shipping. And there's quite a bit of delays that we don't really have a lot of power over. But we do have confirmation these will be coming soon. So if you pre-ordered the SD40-2s, your dealer will be giving you a call pretty soon. If you did not pre-order one of these, you might want to go to your hobby shop and check and see if they had ordered any above the pre-orders. That way you can grab one for yourself. But these are the ready to roll. And I'll just share a couple of these pictures with you. Some really nice pictures. Now, I believe this is Jack's. This is Jack's club, if I remember right. So, like I said it before, a lot of us at Athearn are model railroaders, and Jack is very active in his local club. Really nice close-up of the SD40-2 here. And you remember the UP ones? Yep. I remember what these went with. We talked about this last year. It's been a while. Those are coming as well. I'll be sharing pictures of those a little bit later, not on today's show. But this is back in the old days, back when the red sills were common, and these were brand new locomotives on the line. And of course, we got to have some Cascade Green in there. Cascade Green, one of my personal favorites. Looking real good. And last but not least, how many of you guys ordered your 75th anniversary SD40-2s? Now, I may be a little biased, but this is a beautiful locomotive. And I hope you guys pre-ordered them. They did really got a lot of orders for these. So if you didn't pre-order one of these, you might want to get in with your dealer now and talk to them and say, hey, you know what? If you got any extras of those, I'd like to buy one. Check it out. Corporate colors, of course, the corporate blues and the yellow. It's got its 75th anniversary. Here we see it's got top management in the yard. Jack will have to let me know what yard that is. I don't know if that's Long Beach Yard or where that is. We got the top brass and the coach there. making an inspection of this really nice locomotive, number 1946. And here's 1946 with the previous anniversary locomotive back in the 60th anniversary paint scheme. So the Athearn 1946 is SD40-2. It was built in the mid-1960s. It was originally going to go to the CB&Q, but CB&Q was pretty well set with their SD40s. Then it was going to go to the CNS. Long story short, it ended up being on the Burlington Northern and just was used in mainline freight for the Burlington Northern right up until about 95. It was painted in Heritage 1. And then it was sent to Galesburg for hump service. And then just recently, Athearn got a hold of BNSF and said, hey, we heard you got a surplus SD40-2. We'd like to paint it in our corporate colors. And BNSF said, yeah, it's a great idea. I'm kidding. That's not true. But it makes for a great story. And that's how we do our models sometimes. Sometimes we like to do some proto-land stuff. And if we make it a little bit more believable that way, it's more fun. This is not based on any actual locomotive other than an SD40-2 in a simple paint scheme. So I hope you are as excited about these as I am. Now, Anthony says, when will they be released? Well, they're leaving the factory now. We should start seeing these, I would think, by the end of the month. Usually when Jack or Janik or John is sending me pictures like this, it means the production models are on their way. So we've probably got anywhere between 4 to 6 weeks. So if you pre-ordered one of these, you're all set. You don't need to worry. If you did not pre-order one, I'd call your dealer now. So mid-November is what we're trying for. With everything going on with shipping delays, I can't promise you that it's going to be exactly at that date, but that's what we're looking at right now. Okay, so what else do I have for you? Well, the Dash 9s are on their way too. And if you guys have been as excited about the Dash 9s as I know a lot of you have, I got a few pictures to show to you. We were talking about BNSF in a fictitious way. Now we'll talk about BNSF in a factual way. Now, one thing I want to stress to you guys, again, this is not taken in a photo studio by a professional photographer. This is the developer. This is him taking pictures to make sure that everything is right. This is one of those things that before these locomotives ship to you, we are trying very hard to make sure that we've covered all the bases. And one of the things that he'll do is he'll take some pictures, and in the meantime, he'll send me copies of those pictures. That way I can share them to you, because I think you guys would like to see what's going on. And here we go, Heritage 2, BNSF 5127. Really nice looking locomotive, really nice unit. Obviously mid-2000s era. Let's see what else he's got to share with us. Now this is a little fuzzy because, again, sometimes we just take these pictures with our cell phones, but we'd rather show you what we're working on rather than just talk about it. And nice front end shot of all the detail that is going into these. Now again, since these are Genesis, they are not just specific to the railroad, but specific to the numbering. So, great locomotive. I thought I had one more picture in here. Oh, I guess not. So there you have it. Pretty soon, these guys will be here as well. Now, with shipping delays, again, it might be about mid-November. We really want them to be here sometime in October, but with all the shipping delays, yeah. Okay, Herc, yeah, I know, you want a hat. I would, it doesn't work the same as seeing you in person. One of these days, Herc, I hope I get to see you at a show, and maybe I can do that for you. Maybe I can get you a hat. I appreciate you coming on the show every Tuesday. And I see you. I see you out there. Yeah, hopefully we'll get to see a lot of you guys at a show. So with that, I'm going to put this guy away, and we've got time for a couple of questions. If you got some questions that you would like to have answered, I will do my best to answer some of those questions. And looks like, oh yeah, the H2, he's liking the H2 paint scheme. Yeah, he was pretty cool. I don't know. I was always a Heritage One scheme myself. I kind of like that Great Northern-esque look. And some guys, they like the newer stuff. They like the swoosh scheme and the black and orange. So what do we got? What do we have here? Austin. He must know something I don't. He wants to know, when of the city of Prineville Railway SW1500s coming out? I don't know. Do you know something I don't know? Because I honestly don't know. We've got some good stuff coming out soon, but maybe you know something I don't. So I don't have an answer for you. Sorry. Let's see. What else have we got here? Here we go. Anthony's got a question. Jim, will you be going to Amherst in January? Yes, that's home for me. That's my home show. I've been going to that show personally anyway since mid-90s. It's one of my favorite shows. And since going back and forth between here and the Northeast, it's probably one of my favorite shows. And it's a big show. Now, if you don't know what he's talking about, the Amherst Show this year will be January 29th and 30th. It's a weekend. It's held in East Springfield, Massachusetts at the Big E, or the Eastern States Exposition Center. It's 4 large buildings of pure model railroad happiness and bliss. You'll see displays, you'll see vendors, and you'll see Athearn. And so I'm looking forward to going out there, and some other of my teammates are planning on joining me and seeing all that there is to see out there. And we'll have some cool stuff to show you as well. But yes, I plan on being there, Anthony, and looking forward to it. Let me see. Well, Chris, you wrote a nice comment, so I want to put it up there. Chris says, hey, Jim, you might look into the Tenzi, I think is how you pronounce it, Valley Railroad, GP7 number 1829. It's running on a railroad right now, doing a special Tennessee Valley Railroad Museum loop excursion special. Oh, that's cool. Thank you, Chris. Yeah, these GP7s, they ended up everywhere. It's hard to keep track of them, and it's hard to keep track of the paint scheme. So that's a good suggestion. And if you don't mind, Chris, please go to the Athearn website, go to the Contact Us page, go to the Athearn product suggestion email, and send that to us, because our developers, they love looking into stuff like this. And it sounds like it'd be a really cool locomotive. Let's see. Zach's asking about 90s Chicago and Northwestern GP7s. That would be cool. Be cool. I haven't heard anything where we've just done the GP7s on this round. It won't be obviously this round, but it could happen in a future run. I mean, it's definitely a good suggestion. All right, I got time for one more question, and then we're going to pull the pin on this episode. Okay, Steve, that's a good question, and one that I'll throw up there. Will these Genesis GP7s have lighted number boards and marker lights on this run? No, they will not. And the reason being is because they are Genesis. Genesis 2.0 has those lighting features. So if they were Genesis 2.0, they would have the lighting boards set up differently, or separately rather, from the headlight, as well as the marker lights. The marker lights would be separate. Ground lights would be separate, things of that nature. Those are all lighting features that we can be built into the Tsunami 2 decoder. But those are Genesis 2.0 options. Now, the good news is That's not to say that in the future that won't change, because technology marches forward. And as you've seen with some of our recent releases, we've updated a lot of things. So not this release, but I'm pretty sure you'll see that in future releases. Okay, Austin, thanks, but my birthday was a long time ago. Yeah, I didn't know it was my birthday. I was this year old when I learned it was my birthday. One more question, because it looks like a good one. Okay, so Jeremy, I'm going to put that up there because, again, you took the time to ask the question. Jeremy says, I've been sending emails to product suggestion contact for a while now. Any word on anything DM and IR? More specifically, Taconite Jennies. They're worth their weight in gold currently on eBay. Okay, so a couple of things, and then we'll pull the pin on this program. When you send in a product suggestion, let's say I'm sitting at my computer and I'm like, man, you know what? I really want a New England Southern GP18 high hood. So I send that to my to the email product suggestions, and that goes in. Now, what happens is those emails go to our developers, and they see those emails. Now, don't think that because they're not responding to you that they're not reading those. All of that comes in, and you also have to realize there's a ton of emails that come in on a daily basis even. But they get stored, they get categorized. And the developer may see my email and say, huh, that's interesting. That's a former Rock Island unit. We've done Rock Island before. Yeah, we might be able to do it. And then if he sees 3 or 4 other guys say the same railroad and the same locomotive, then it starts holding a little bit more weight. So what happens is all those emails that you send us, those get organized into strengths, if you will. And that allows us to know, hey, you know what? If we did this locomotive and this railroad, we've got guys out there that have requested it. They're going to buy it. So don't think that we're not listening or we're not watching. We are watching those emails. We are listening. And we want to thank you, everybody, for sending those emails in, because a lot of what you saw even today with the GP7s, those roads were based on your recommendations that you sent us through those emails. So good question. And Jeremy, thanks again for sending that email in. And don't give up hope. There's so many good choices out there to do. So it's just a matter of time. So with that, I want to thank you all for joining me. I want everybody to be happy, be healthy, be safe, do some good modeling. Until I see you next Tuesday at the same time. High greens, everybody.